Hello, fellow bibliophiles, and welcome back to Blatantly Bookish. I'm Marissa, and today I am so excited to come back and announce another Jane Austen July. That's right, Jane Austen July is nearly upon us. Jane Austen July is a month-long readathon all about celebrating Miss Jane Austen and enjoying her writing, learning about her life and her time period, and thinking about the influence she's had on our modern world. And this Jane Austen July is a particularly important and exciting one because this year is Jane Austen's 250th anniversary. December 16th, 2025 is the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth. And there have been global initiatives throughout the year of 2025 to celebrate Jane Austen, including festivals, museum exhibits, re-releases of Austen's adaptations in theaters, plenty of special editions and publications of Austen's work, and a massive amount of new Jane Austen-related books and other things. So I encourage everyone to consider participating in Jane Austen July this year in honor of her 250th anniversary. And if you are a massive fan of Jane Austen, I'm sure you're as excited as I am about this year's Jane Austen July. But even if you've never read anything by her before or have never quite understood the appeal of Austen, this readathon is for you too. This important and commemorative year is the perfect excuse to immerse yourself in the work of Jane Austen. Personally, Austen's novels are my ultimate comfort reads, and there's something so special about this time of year and coming together as a community to enjoy her work. So I do hope that you'll join me and the other hosts of Jane Austen July, Katie from Books and Things and Claudia from Spinster's Library, as we celebrate all things Jane Austen. There's only one thing you truly have to do to enjoy Jane Austen July, and that's read something by Jane Austen. But if you're excited for more, there will be the usual challenges, which are always a treat to revisit, as well as a group read-along. And this year, there are two new things for you. There's a Discord group, which will give us plenty of opportunity to chat about Austen, and there will be a group adaptation to watch and discuss. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to go through the challenges and give some recommendations of my old favorites, as well as some new things that I'm aware of that would fit the challenges. These recommendations are not at all comprehensive. There is so much exciting Jane Austen content to consume that I couldn't possibly fit everything into this video. So definitely do look at the description below for extra links and probably some more things that I forgot to mention while filming this. And I encourage you, if you're looking for more Jane Austen related recommendations, to first of all check out the other co-hosts' videos, but also take a look at some of the older Jane Austen July content across BookTube. This is the 8th annual Jane Austen July, and since Katie and I have started this readathon, we've been blown away by the engagement and amazing content and videos that have been created. Also, since this is Jane Austen's 250th anniversary, and there is just such an overwhelming amount of new Austen content being released, I encourage you to go ahead and write in the comment section of this video and share your recommendations with everyone. What new releases are you aware of, and which ones are you most looking forward to? Alright, that's enough of that very long and rambly intro. I'm glad that you're still here. Let's get into the challenges. The first challenge for Jane Austen July is to read one of Austen's 6 published novels, and those are, in no particular order, Sense and Sensibility, Northanger Abbey, Mansfield Park, Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion, and the group read for this year is, last but not least, Emma. Emma is probably my second favorite Austen at the moment. That's a hard ranking that changes a lot, but yeah, Emma is definitely top half of Austen's novels for me. Emma Woodhouse is quite the character, with the famous description of handsome, clever, and rich. She is privileged and bored, and she busies herself with matchmaking and meddling in the lives of everyone around her in the small town of Highbury. All without any intention of marrying herself, of course. She is charmingly naive, and it's fun to watch all of the romantic entanglements unfold around her. Like most Austen novels, Emma explores themes of love, marriage, gender, and social class in the Regency era. But I think what makes Emma so special is how intensely funny it is. I think it's one of Austen's most humorous and satirical novels. There's so much humor through characterization and Austen's dialogue, and keen observations of human nature. Emma has some of Austen's most complex and fascinating characters too, and I'm so looking forward to revisiting them this year. Emma is one of Austen's longer novels, so for the read-along we'll be reading 2 chapters a day in the month of July, which I think will be very fun and manageable. And if you're participating in the read-along, you can discuss all of your thoughts in the Discord or the Goodreads group. The second challenge is to read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her main 6 novels. Jane Austen is definitely most famous for her 6 published novels, but she's written other things as well, most notably her novella, Lady Susan, and her 2 unfinished works, The Watsons and Sanditon, and also her Juvenilia, which is a collection of the really humorous and unpolished work she wrote from the ages of 11 to 17. There are also collections of Jane Austen's letters that fit this prompt. She wrote mostly to her sister Cassandra, but also to her friends and family members, and her letters weirdly feel like her books because they're full of snippets of daily Regency life and gossip. They make the Regency era feel fresh and relatable, and are a way to gain more insight into the author herself. Of Austen's Juvenilia, there are a lot of really short, funny works, but I highly recommend The History of England, which is a satire of a history textbook about the English monarchy from the reign of Henry IV to Charles I. It's very funny, and it includes illustrations by Jane's sister Cassandra, which definitely adds to the humor. Austen's Juvenilia is just full of her wit and creativity, and even though it's just absurd and unpolished, it's a ton of fun and a real glimpse into the author we know she will become. The third challenge is to read a nonfiction work about Jane Austen or her time period, the late Georgian or Regency era. For this, you could read something about the time period that isn't even necessarily directly about Austen. Like if you wanted to learn more about England and the Napoleonic Wars, you could read a book on that for this challenge. They actually influenced her writing quite a deal. You could read cookbooks from the time period if you wanted. I have this book, Tea with Jane Austen, which features recipes inspired by Austen's novels and letters, and actually features recipes that are based on Regency recipes. Or you could read something more specific to Austen, like one of the many biographies written about her. Or you could read literary criticism about her work. There are just so many options for this challenge. Lucy Worsley is one of my favorite historians, and she wrote Jane Austen at Home, all about looking at Jane Austen's life through the domestic spaces she inhabited. If we're on biographies, perhaps my favorite biography I've read so far is The Real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things by Paula Byrne. Each chapter begins with a discussion of an object that was either owned by Jane Austen or represents a key moment in her life or an important theme in her work. A new biography I'm excited about is Jane Austen in 41 Objects by Catherine Sutherland. It sounds like very much the same premise as A Life in Small Things, which I enjoyed so much. Last year, I also read Gentlemen of Uncertain Fortune by Rory Muir, which is all about younger sons in Jane Austen's time. It explores the opportunities and career paths offered to younger sons, since they were usually left with very little inheritance and had to make their own way in the world financially. It's really helpful to understand the financial situations of some of Austen's male characters who are younger sons. Another book I'm interested in is Living with Jane Austen by Janet Todd, which was published this year in March. It's partially a personal memoir about Jane's influence on the author, and part expert interaction with Austen's letters, manuscripts, and published novels. And then, of course, a dear favorite of mine is this book, What Matters in Jane Austen, 20 Crucial Puzzles Solved by John Mullen. It's a brilliant book of literary criticism. John Mullen has an encyclopedic knowledge of Austen's work and organizes this book by theme rather than by Austen book. So he talks in great detail about topics in her novels, like age and the appearance of certain characters, the significance of the seaside, and so many other topics. And he looks at these themes throughout the body of her work. This book is amazing, and it pieces together such insightful details and truths found in Austen's fiction. Another favorite of mine for this challenge is Elegant Etiquette in the 19th Century by Mallory James. It's all about manners and etiquette and different expectations for behavior in the time period, and it's an invaluable resource. I feel like there's more I can mention, but I also feel like I've been talking about this challenge for a while, so there could totally be a whole video on that, and I think I should move on. The fourth challenge is to read a modern retelling of a Jane Austen book or a historical fiction book set in the Georgian or Regency era. Like the last challenge, you could probably make a whole video about this challenge. There are so many Austen retellings and books I never even realized were loose Austen retellings out there. And there's something for every type of reader. There are YA retellings and multiple Jane Austen murder mystery series. There are graphic novels and Austen retellings with fantasy elements like dragons. And of course, there's a ton of historical fiction, just general, not necessarily Austen-related historical fiction books that do take place in Austen's lifetime between 1775 and 1817. So for this challenge, some of my favorites are Longbourn by Joe Baker, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling from the servant's point of view. Before reading this book, I hardly even realized the presence of the servants in Pride and Prejudice, but they're actually there in the text and would have been very obvious to the readership in Austen's time period. And it's just so interesting to think about the plot from their perspective. I also love The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. It's a Pride and Prejudice retelling from Mary Bennet's point of view. In it, Mary is the heroine of her own story, which extends past the ending of Pride and Prejudice. It actually recaptured the feelings I experienced reading Austen's novels for the first time, which is pretty impressive and not something that commonly happens for me. And I think that this is a great time to read this book because I've heard there's a BBC miniseries of The Other Bennet Sister being released in late 2025. For this challenge, you also might want to check out one of Jill Hornby's books. She's written Miss Austen and Godmersham Park, both of which I've done reviews of on my channel. And now she's coming out with another Austen-related book called Elopement. I think it's historical fiction about Austen's extended family. It was just released at the end of May in the UK, and I don't think it comes out in the US until October. But anyway, Miss Austen by Jill Hornby is a historical fiction book all about Jane's sister, Cassandra, and it gives plausible insight into her decision to destroy so many of their letters. And now it's been adapted to the screen as well in a 4-part miniseries. Godmersham Park is a fictional account of Anne Sharp, the governess to Jane Austen's niece. The book explores Anne's precarious class position as governess and her struggles with her health, and it looks at the long-lasting friendship Anne formed with Jane Austen during her employment at Godmersham Park. If you're up for some Jane Austen-themed murder mysteries, a series I've been loving is Claudia Gray's Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney mystery series. I've read the first two, The Murder of Mr. Wickham and The Late Mrs. Willoughby, and absolutely loved them. The third one is called The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, which I think is about preventing the death of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and the fourth is called The Rushworth Family Plot, which I think is about the Bertrams and will be published on June 17th, so very soon. I think the series is lighthearted, brilliant Jane Austen fun. These books bring together characters from various Austen novels to solve mysteries. In the first, Emma is hosting a dinner party full of heroes and heroines from the main 6 novels when the uninvited guest, Mr. Wickham, is murdered, and it's up to the next generation of Austen characters to figure out who done it. The series is basically Agatha Christie meets Jane Austen, and I honestly think that both authors would approve. And then I know that there are 2 other Austen mystery series that people think quite highly of that I haven't read yet. I think Jane Austen is the detective in both of these, and the authors draw on biographical information to tell these stories. One of these is by Stephanie Barron. I have the first in the series here, Jane and the Unpleasantness of Scargrave Manor. And I think this one is like 15 books long. And then there's a newer one by Jessica Bull that's only 2 books so far, and it's called Miss Austen Investigates. If you're looking for something pretty fun and light, I also really enjoyed the particular charm of Miss Jane Austen and its sequel, The Unexpected Past of Miss Jane Austen. It's about a Jane Austen fan who must help Jane get back to her own time to preserve the reality where Jane's novels still exist. I know it sounds really trite and gimmicky, but it's actually a whole lot of fun. I think it does justice to Austen's character and legacy and really shows the impact that Jane has had on all of our lives. And if you're really into time travel, I also enjoyed The Jane Austen Project by Kathleen Flynn, where two time travelers go back in time to meet Jane Austen and recover a finished manuscript of The Watsons. Then, of course, you could possibly try a more traditional modern retelling for this challenge, something more like Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding, or Unmarriageable by Sonia Kamal, or Aisha at Last, or Pride by Evie Zaboy. I personally don't usually like these as much as some of the other books I discussed. I actually really didn't like Bridget Jones's Diary, even though the movies are a ton of fun, but I did actually quite like Pride. I don't know what it is per se, but this type of retelling is very hit or miss for me. Anyway, the next challenge, the fifth challenge, is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen, someone publishing in her lifetime, give or take a few years. Some of Jane Austen's favorite novelists were Maria Edgeworth and Frances Burney, so you could read Evelina or Cecilia, or you could read Belinda or Castle Rackrent. There was also Susan Edmonston Ferrier, who has been dubbed by some as the Scottish Jane Austen. You could read a different author who was popular in Austen's time, like Sir Walter Scott, or maybe one of the Romantic poets, Coleridge, Blake, Byron, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats. If you like poetry, Austen's favorite poet was Cooper. And if you like plays, you could read the play that was actually performed by the characters in Mansfield Park called Lover's Vows by Elizabeth Inchbald. Or you could read Richard Brinsley Sheridan, who is an interesting playwright. I've read School for Scandal, which is a lot of fun, and also The Rivals. If you're interested, you could dive into the Gothic genre, which always pairs well with a reading of Northanger Abbey. There's The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe, which is of course mentioned a lot in that book. There are other authors that Austen would have read and been inspired by, as well as other contemporaries of hers to explore. I found this resource many years ago, which is a Goodreads list with a lot of books that Jane Austen actually read herself. I didn't create the list, so I don't take any credit for it, but I'll link it down below in case you need some inspiration for this challenge. Another book I want to mention that could potentially help with this challenge is Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. It's a book that you could actually read for the third challenge if you wanted, but it could also give you ideas of authors from Jane Austen's time period that you'd be interested in reading. Rebecca Romney is a rare book dealer who tries to uncover the women writers who inspired Jane Austen, what they meant to Jane, and how they were erased and forgotten from the literary canon. I know it definitely talks more about Frances Burney, Anne Radcliffe, Maria Edgeworth, and Elizabeth Inchbald. I'm trying to read it in June to see if I can get more inspiration for this challenge myself. And then there are two watching challenges. The sixth challenge is to watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book, and there are so many great ones for this. There's the 1995 BBC miniseries of Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth. There's the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie with Keira Knightley. There is Sense and Sensibility, the 1995 version with Kate Winslet, as well as the 2008 BBC miniseries, which is great. I rewatched it last year. I love Northanger Abbey, the 2007 version. For Persuasion, there is the 1995 version, which is great, and the 2008 version, which I don't quite like as much, but is great as well. And I am pretending that the Netflix version of Persuasion does not exist. I do not recommend watching it. I don't really love any of the direct adaptations from Mansfield Park, but there's one from 1999 and one from 2007. There's the 2016 movie Love and Friendship with Kate Beckinsale, which I adore. It's actually not an adaptation of Love and Friendship, it's an adaptation of Lady Susan, but it is phenomenal. And then there is the 2019 Sanditon show, which I don't know how direct that really is because Sanditon is an unfinished work, but I feel like mentioning it in here rather than in the modern screen adaptation. And then there's Emma. There's the 2009 BBC miniseries of Emma, which is phenomenal. There's also a Gwyneth Paltrow version of Emma from 1996, which is all right, I think. I don't have very distinct memories of it. I watched it a very long time ago. And then there is a very special group watch for this year, which is the 2020 version of Emma. It would be too hard and definitely some sort of copyright infringement to all truly watch it together, like in a virtual screening or something. But we do encourage you to watch it and discuss it in the Goodreads group and the Discord threads. And myself and my co-hosts will be discussing it together and posting a video or having a live show about it towards the end of the month. So we will keep you posted on that. I do hope you'll join us in watching the 2020 version of Emma and letting us know what you think. And the last and seventh challenge is to watch a modern screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. There are so many fun ones for this. There's Bridget Jones's Diary, there's Bride and Prejudice, a Bollywood version of Pride and Prejudice. There's Austenland. I don't know what it is about this movie that I love so much, but I watch it almost every year. I think it's actually more self-aware than people give it credit for, and it straddles this fine line between adhering to the stereotypes of rom-coms and the stereotypes of Jane Austen fans, and also pointing out the ridiculousness of those stereotypes. I just have so much fun with it. Austenland is actually a book as well. I've never read the book, but it would fit into Challenge 4 if you're interested. And then there is Clueless, which might be my favorite Emma adaptation of all time. It's a cult classic, and it is so true to the spirit of Emma in all the right ways, but it's also just a really good movie in its own right. And then, of course, there are web series, if you like them. There's just a ton of them on YouTube. There's the quintessential Lizzie Bennet Diaries, but there's also Emma Approved, so if you're looking for another Emma adaptation. There's Northbound, which is a Northanger Abbey web series. There's a Persuasion web series called Rational Creatures, which is phenomenal. And then there's From Mansfield with Love. There's also a Sense and Sensibility one called Eleanor and Marianne Take Barton. So those were all of the challenges. I am personally so excited for Jane Austen July this year. We are reading one of my favorite Jane Austen books, and my husband is going to read Emma for the very first time. I can't wait to hear his opinions on it, and I'm sure we'll film a video about that and about his Jane Austen July experience. There's also a Jane Austen exhibit at the Morgan Library in New York City that I'm very excited to go to at some point. Perhaps I will even film something about it for you. We'll see. I'll link the information about it in the description, just in case you're anywhere near New York. But if you aren't, there are so many exhibits and things all over celebrating Austen's 250th birthday, so there might be something exciting near you too. Do you think you'll participate in Jane Austen July? What are your personal plans? What do you think you might read and watch this year? Will you be joining us for our group reads and the group watching experience? I want to hear everything in the comments down below. And also, if you have any specific Jane Austen related video requests for me, please let me know in the comments too, because you never know, I might just do them. Happy almost Jane Austen July, everyone. I can't wait to see you in another bookish and likely Jane Austen related video very soon. Bye!